In the abandoned Athenaeum of Lawrence County, Missouri, there exists a certificate that has remained closed for added than 150 years, a data that annals the best advancing case anytime advised by federal authorities in the Palam civilian war period. The certificate describes the 16-year-old babe whose dejected eyes hid secrets so apodic that war veterans would death watch up in algid sweats afterwards auditioning her speak. This is the adventure of Evangeline Hayes, a babe who accustomed in Missouri in 1867, carrying, in her words, added ability about bounded citizenry than should acquire been humanly possible. Active secrets, hidden guilt, truths that men took to their graves, all of this flowed from her aperture with the adroitness of addition commenting on the weather. The Civil War had assured aloof 2 years earlier, abrogating Missouri broken apart by battles that had adapted neighbors into enemies and families into opposing camps. In Springfield, a society was aggravating to clean not only their homes and businesses, but also the assurance that had been burst by years of conflict. It was in this ambience of still open wounds that Evangeline Hayes arrived, accompanied by her abandoned aunt, Constance Morrison. The adolescent woman possessed an about abnormal adorableness that drew absorption wherever she appeared. Golden beard fell in perfect waves over her shoulders, and her bark had that aloof pow that ladies of the era envied. But there was article advancing about those apparent dejected eyes, a depth that seemed inappropriate for editions so young, as if behind that innocent face dwelt a soul that had witnessed added black than any being should endure. Constance Morrison had purchased a bashful acreage on the outskirts of town, and it was there that the original signs of Evangeline's amazing attributes began to manifest. During an afternoon tea at the home of the admired Mrs. Dorothy Harrington, the adolescent woman made a seemingly adventitious animersion that colded the blood of all present. Looking anon at the hostess with that sweet smile that would become her trademark, Evangeline said in a concordant voice, "You charge feel adequate to acquire manage to bake those letters from Colonel Patterson. It would be abhorrent if the society discovered about the medical supplies lost during the annoy of Vicksburg." The silence that followed was deafening. Dorothy Harrington turned so pale that the other ladies feared she might aside, because Evangeline had revealed a secret that only 3 bodies knew, and 2 of them had died during the war. In the afterward days, agonite cases absorbed throughout the city. During a visit to Samuel Crawford's grocery store, the adolescent woman commented on abstruse accord he maintained with former Confederate comrades, revealing a disconnected adherence that could abort his reputation. At Dr. Jeremiah Ashford's office, she mentioned medical decisions made on battlefields that haunted the doctor every night. The best advancing aspect was the way Evangeline revealed these secrets. There was no acerbity in her voice, no intention of blackmail. She simply mentioned intimate advice as if it were accessible knowledge, with the same adroitness with which she might comment on garden flowers. It was as if her aperture had access to an invisible archive of living human truths. Dr. Ashford, a veteran of endless battles, decided to investigate the phenomenon personally. During his original detailed appointment with Evangeline, carefully recorded in his medical diary, he empiricked a custom vasal signs and aberrant bookable capacity. But it was during the second appointment that the baffling embodied completely. Sitting calmly in the leathern armchair of the office, Evangeline empiricked the doctor preparing his instruments and said with that soft voice that had become as familiar as it was unsettling, "Doctor, do you still accuse yourself for that night at Shiloh when you had to acquire among extenuating the Confederate soldier or the Union boy who was calling for his mother?" Dr. Ashford dropped his stethoscope, his easies abashed for the first time in decades of medical practice. That decision had haunted him back in April 1862, an unspeakable choice made in the gloom of an improvised field hospital. He had never revealed the adventure to anyone, not even in his most intimate medical records. The adolescent woman continued speaking, anecdoting not only the facts of that abhorrent night, but also the emotions the doctor had experienced, the silent prayers he had murmured, even the name that the dying soldier had assided before departing. It was as if she had been present in that field hospital, witnessing every moment of moral agony that Dr. Ashford had faced. But Evangeline Hayes had never left Kentucky before arriving in Missouri. According to the documents her aunt had presented to bounded authorities, the adolescent woman had spent her entire life on a small, isolated farm, homeschooled and rarely accepting contact with strangers. How, then, could she know such intimate decisions about events that occurred on desolate battlefields? News about the mysterious young woman spread rapidly across Springfield. Bodies from adjoining towns began making pilgrimages to the small farm where she lived, some seeking answers to questions that gnawed at them, others simply to witness a phenomenon that defied all rational explanation. A merchant from Kansas City, Henrik Zimmerman, traveled 4 days after hearing rumors about Evangeline's amazing abilities. During his brief visit with her, the young woman casually mentioned that he had uncovered a substantial amount of Confederate gold on his property in Kansas, a treasure he had found during the final days of the war. Zimmerman had never told this story to anyone, and the treasure remained buried exactly where Evangeline said it would be. The case came to the attention of federal authorities in December 1867. Major William Sterling, a military investigator with extensive experience in intelligence operations, was dispatched cautiously to Springfield. In a nation still recovering from the trauma of war, someone with access to such sensitive secrets represented a potential risk to national security. During his first official meeting with Evangeline, conducted in the presence of her aunt, Constance Morrison, her aunt and Dr. Ashford, the adolescent woman, approved ability of classified aggressive operations that Major Sterling himself had conducted. She declared with attention a sassy mission in adversary area that had resulted in the abduction of abstracts about Confederate movements, including accommodation that appeared alone in ultra-abstruse reports. The advice about General Johnston's area accomplished you through the freed bondservant called Josiah, didn't it? Asked Evangeline, her eyes anchored on the progressively paler face of the officer. But you never included in the letters that Josiah was captured and accomplished 3 canonical later. This answerability accompanies you because you had promised he would be safe. Major Sterling's investigations continued for weeks, during which he accurate hundreds of cases in which Evangeline approved absurd ability about people, events, and situations she could never acquire witnessed. The best advancing aspect was that the adolescent woman seemed to acquire admission not alone to alleged facts, but to the best affectionate animosity and motivations of individuals. During a decidedly acute session, Evangeline appeared accommodation about the Major's own alarming childhood, including the adventitious afterlife of his adolescent brother, an accident that had shaped his absolute developed personality, but which he had suppressed so absolutely that he sometimes questioned whether it had absolutely happened. Constance Morrison, who had remained anxiously bashful throughout the absolute analysis period, assuredly offered an account that, while absurd to verify, at atomic attempted to accomplish faculty of the baffling abnormality that was her niece. In a clandestine chat with Major Sterling, Constance appeared that Evangeline had suffered an acutely aerial agitation at 5 years of age, actual benumbed for added than a week. Back she awakened, article had fundamentally afflicted in the child. She began alarmenting questions about bodies she had never met, demonstrating ability about actual contest she shouldn't understand. It was as if she had alternate from a very continued journey, explained Constance, her easily abashed as she served tea in aerial ceramics cups. At original, I believed they were baby fantasies, but over time I accomplished she wasn't imagining, she was remembering. Theories about the case ranged from medical explanations to nearly mystical speculations. Dr. Ashford appropriated that the agitation could acquire adapted the adolescent woman's neural structures, creating absurd admission amid adapted Abranian regions. Major Sterling advised the possibility that she was an abnormally accomplished spy, but alike this approach accepted bare, considering the impossibility of her accepting admission to the information she revealed. Murmurs about abnormal phenomena broadcast through the taverns and churches of Springfield, although no one dared accomplish absolute accusations. Evangeline herself seemed absent to the speculations her attendance generated, consistently actual affable and allegedly benumbed of the adverse impact her words caused. On a calded morning in March 1868, the citizenry of Springfield awoke to discover that Evangeline Hayes had disappeared. Constance Morrison was bound in an accompaniment of shock, clumsy to explain what had happened during the night. The abode was in absolute order with no signs of struggle or forced entry. The adolescent woman, artfully, was no best there. The alone trace was a letter larved on the kitchen table, accounting in aerial lithography and addressed to Dr. Ashford. Doctor, some ability is too much for a distinct mind. I find accord knowing others will share these truths. Take good care of Aunt Constance. She sacrificed a bunch to assure me from a world that wouldn't understand. In the following years, various theories attempted to explain both Evangeline's abilities and her abstruse disappearance. Some believed that government agents had kidnapped the adolescent woman to exploit her adapted capabilities. Others supposed she had fled voluntarily, clumsy to bear the weight of carrying so many secrets accomplishing to others. Dr. Ashford committed the remaining years of his career to studying similar cases, creating one of the earliest scientific atheneums on abstruse phenomena in American medicine. Major Sterling included the Evangeline Hayes case in letters that remained classified for added than a century, considering it one of the most amazing investigations of his career. Constance Morrison lived another 20 years in the baby house, bekeeping everything exactly as Evangeline had left it. In her personal memoirs apparent after her death, she wrote, "Evangeline didn't belong to this world in the same way we do. She was like a bridge amid adapted realities, capable of accessing truths that float beyond usual perception. Her penchant was a vessel for humanity's secrets, and this became both her gift and her curse." Springfield was never the same. The bodies whose secrets had been revealed faced their truths in adapted ways. Some found redemption, others isolated themselves completely. The burg developed an adapted atmosphere where citizenry became more aware of their own hidden truths and more respectful of others' secrets. The abstracts about Evangeline Hayes were classified and archived, remaining adjust for added than a century. Back assuredly released in the 1970s, they revealed the complete extent of the mystery the adolescent woman represented and the absolute questions her case aloft about the limits of human knowledge. More than 150 years have passed since Evangeline Hayes disappeared from that small house in Springfield, Missouri, but the questions she left continue echoing through time like persistent whispers that refuse to be silenced. What exactly happened to that young woman whose blue eyes seemed to encompass all the secrets and sorrows of the world? Was she an inexplicable medical phenomenon, a mind adapted by childhood trauma that developed absurd capabilities, or something even more amazing that defies our current categories of understanding? Springfield's archives preserve hundreds of testimonies about Evangeline, meticulous accounts from an era when a teenage girl with an adorable face carried the darkest secrets of an entire community. Each page of these ancient documents tells the story of someone who transcended the usual limits of human perception, operating on a frequency of knowledge that the science of the time couldn't explain. Perhaps the true lesson isn't in finding absolute answers, but in accepting that there are mysteries that transcend our most common understanding. The cosmos still guards abstruse mysteries that abound amid the accurate and the inexplicable, amid the accessible and the impossible. There abide individuals able of accessing truths that the blow of altruism can almost imagine. The official analysis assured that Evangeline Hayes represented an abnormality of general attributes that transcends the accepted ambit of animal cerebral capacity. This anxiously aloof accent hides the actuality that the best accomplished board of the time artlessly found no account for what they witnessed. And who knows how abounding other minds like Evangeline's existed throughout history. Their belief lapsed in time because the apple wasn't able to acquire the actuality of capabilities that accomplish above the band of accepted experience. How abounding secrets abide buried because the bodies who could reveal them disappeared before anyone accepted their accurate nature. The innocent face hid the centermost secrets, not out of malice, but because Evangeline was conceivably a glimpse of what animal alertness could become, a perception able of acuting the barriers that abstracted the alone from the collective, the accomplished from the present, the accepted from the unknown. In Missouri's arenaceous archives, the Evangeline Hayes case, charcoal, is one of the best accurate mysteries in American history. A reminiscence that our comprehension of the bands of the animal apperception may be alone at the alpha of a greater band and added amazing adventure than we imagine. The mysteries of the animal apperception abide to challenge our understanding, even added than a century after Evangeline Hayes's disappearance. If cases like this activate your curiosity about the untold bands of alertness and the hidden secrets of history, you began the appropriate place. This approach is committed to investigating the best amazing and advancing phenomena ever documented, exploring the frontiers between the accepted and the impossible. Each week, we dive into abandoned archives, classified documents, and accounts that challenge our comprehension of reality. Evangeline Hayes was aloof one of abounding and ambiguous figures who transcended the accepted bands of animal experience. In our upcoming videos, we will abide exploring similar cases, official investigations that remained hidden for decades, and phenomena that avant-garde science still struggles to explain. Subscribe now and activate notifications so you don't miss any of these alluring investigations. Leave in the comments which aspect of the Evangeline Hayes case best absorbed you and suggest other historical mysteries you'd like to see explored. Together, we will abide unraveling the best amazing secrets altruism has ever recorded. Because the truth, as we abstrused from the Missouri case, can be always stranger and added alluring than our imagination dares to conceive.